Okay, now it's time for the really interesting bit, which is proxying device traffic through Fiddler. Fiddler may already be quite a common tool to you. Many developers use it in order to look at the HTTP requests that their web apps are making via the browser. What a lot of people don't know, however, is that you can also use Fiddler to look at the HTTP requests that your devices are making. Things like phones and tablets. We're going to look at both of those in this course. It's actually very simple. There's only 3 steps to proxying the traffic from your device via Fiddler. Firstly, we're going to configure Fiddler so that it will accept remote connections, that is, connections from machines that are not the one you're actually running the Fiddler client on. We're then going to find the IP address of the host machine, that is the machine that we are running Fiddler on. And then thirdly, we're going to configure the device to use Fiddler as a proxy. So let's do that now. Let's jump out of the slideshow and let's just start up Fiddler. There we go. That's probably familiar to many of you. And all I'm going to do now is jump up to the Tools, Fiddler Options, and look at the Connections tab. Now this is what your Connections tab looks like by default. And there's only 2 things here that we want to take note of. One is the port. It will default to 8888. 2 is this little checkbox here, allow remote computers to connect. This is what's going to allow my iPhone to start sending traffic through Fiddler. So let's check that now. Fiddler is asking for a restart. We'll say OK to that. That's fine. Let's just give it a restart and make sure that everything is going to work just fine. And fire it back up. So Fiddler is ready to roll. Step 2 is we need the IP address of this machine. So I'm just going to grab a command prompt. We'll drag it over here. ipconfig. And what we can see here is that my IPv4 address on my Ethernet adapter, this is a PC that is actually wired into Ethernet, is 192.168.1.16. That's it. This machine is now ready to roll. So let's jump out of that and let's now go and configure my iPhone. So what I'm going to do is just jump back into the slides to show you what that looks like. Okay, so here is my iPhone. And again, it doesn't have to be an iPhone. That's just the device that I have and I'm going to be using when I actually demo a real device throughout this course. What I've done is jumped into the current Wi-Fi connection. So this is the first thing. Make sure the device is on Wi-Fi and it is on the same network as the machine running Fiddler. This one's called My Wi-Fi Network. I'm now going to hit on the little information icon next to that network, and that's going to bring up the network properties. What I want to do now is just scroll all the way down to the bottom of this network. And what we'll see down there at the end of the screen is some HTTP proxy information. By default, it's off. What I want to do is just flick that guy over to manual. And when we go to manual, we're going to get some options: server, port, and authentication. Now the server is just the IP address that we saw earlier on, 192.168.1.16. That's it, easy. The port is going to be 8888. So remember we saw that in Fiddler just a little bit earlier on. That was the default. We don't need to touch authentication. There is no authentication configured for this Fiddler proxy. And that's it. That's the entire configuration. We enabled Fiddler for remote connections, we got the IP address of the machine, and then we put in the proxy settings in the device. So now that all that's done, let's move on to the next section, and I'm going to pull out my iPhone and we'll start proxying some traffic.